Yo, what are you doing right now? We are going to get real about men's issues, who Jesus is, and who we are as men in Christ. We're going to hear Trey, Jeremy, Michael, and Brad break it down. These guys call themselves the Cussin Christians. All right, guys, what is going on?
Everybody in the community is wearing a green nose for the month of March. It's kind of to generate income, but
talk about a useless holiday, St. Patrick's Day.
Dude,
we just hit Valentine's.
Yeah,
that's a use. Oh, I better not.
I mean,
no, we don't celebrate that at our house. Valentine's Day, like we basically do it for the kids, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like my wife is like, do not buy me flowers. Do not spend money on a. Yeah, I can't tell if I can hear or not. Don't spend money on cards. Like she's totally against like that.
We used to do it, but now it's kind of like when you're talking about, do you buy each other stuff for Christmas? Like, no, we just do it throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like we show our love throughout the year. It's not one day.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of those cards are so stupid because they start off by saying, I know I don't usually tell you, and I'm usually too busy and I'm too distracted, but here's a card. Like here's my one token out of the year.
Enough. You're just admitting how bad you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Hallmark decided that today I'm supposed to tell you I love you. Congrats.
Yep. So
Yeah.
It is for Hallmark.
When you give them those cards and it says that, I know I don't do this enough, it triggers her to go, you're right. You don't do that.
You really are.
you don't tell me at all.
You don't rub my feet.
Aaron Conrad, we're so glad you're here,
Aaron
dude.
Conrad.
He came down for a nice little weekend visit, saw our brother Gary. I wish I would have been in town to hang out with y'all over the weekend, but you're still here, going back tomorrow, coming straight to us from Columbus, Ohio, and the Unscripted Podcast. You've been doing this a while. You're more pro than we are. Talk to us, man. What's going on up in that neck of the woods?
Yeah, it's been, I started it during the pandemic, and so Unscripted's still moving right along, and I mean, if it wasn't for Unscripted, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in Florida right now, and I wouldn't know Gary. And
Oh, that's right.
So, I mean, it's he responded to an email, and here we are.
Monday morning, I'm moving slow because I arrived home last night about 9:30, 9:45, and why is it when you're on a cross-country flight, all I could think about was getting home and getting my own bed after 4 nights of not in my own bed. Then when I finally get in my bed after the long flight, I am so wired, just staring at the ceiling like, and I'm like trying to make me a peanut butter fold over, trying to be quiet, not to wake up Donna, just so I can find a way for it to settle down. Why
What's
does
a
that happen?
peanut butter fold over?
Is a sandwich not good enough for you?
What is a fold over?
Well, he just.
That's a Texas thing.
Well, maybe it is because no one in Florida knows what a fold-over sandwich is.
I'm not even from Florida. I've lived in like 14 states.
Dude,
It's one piece of bread, isn't it?
it's
When
one
you
piece
fold
of
it
bread.
over.
You get your Jiffy, get your Jiffy. It's Skippy and Jiff, not Jiffy and Skip, whatever. And then fold it over and eat it.
Okay.
So you don't need a plate, don't need anything. Just start.
Are you a
crunching.
crunchy or a creamy guy?
Growing up, all I did was crunchy.
Yeah.
And that's all. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna have to have extra vitamins in it because it got chopped up peanuts in there, And my mom would never buy me sweetened cereal either. I was always Cheerios or Wheaties. So
A spoonful of peanut butter into a handful of chocolate chips.
Yeah.
It'll change your world.
Oh
man.
my gosh, that's really cool.
talk to me.
And you just do one spoonful, so you don't sit there and just, like a thing of ice cream. It's just one spoonful, handful of Nestle chocolate chips.
That's I think why I like the chunky, because I will sit there and eat it
right.
like ice cream.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's the recipe for the Buckeye candy.
That's right, yeah, it'll get your world right.
My mom used to make those.
Really, those things are
right.
awesome.
Yeah,
that's
to bring
right.
up the Buckeyes.
Yeah, here we go.
So for years, that's all I thought it was. And then years later, I heard the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm like, what? It's named after a candy? Like, how cool is that?
It's honestly the only Buckeye I like. It really is. It's not a fan.
Oh, good. All right, love you already. How's your diet going?
Pretty good. I think I'm down about 20.
You look like you are.
I can see it, man.
Not eating spoonfuls of peanut butter.
Peanut butter
right
with
now, but, yeah.
He's down 20 because he's been sick for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I wish I was as fat as I thought I was when I first time I thought I was fat.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, I actually have an
getting
old
worse.
belt out now that like I haven't worn. Has like the one notch on the very end that's kind of like folded over because you the only one you use. And now I'm a notch below
All right.
that. So
It's a different type of fold over.
yeah,
Yeah, there we
definitely
go.
different fold over.
It's not a peanut butter fold.
Not a
I'm gonna
Texas
name-
fold over.
My next
So,
dog, I'm gonna name
leather fold
I'm gonna
over.
name 5 miles so I can tell everybody. Yeah, I walk 5 miles a day.
But Aaron, welcome, man. I'm so glad you're here. Like you said, it was because of your podcast and an email sent a few years back that we are sitting right here
Right now.
having these shenanigans.
Right.
And so we're glad you're here. We hopefully a lot of your audience will tune in and just kind of see what you're like being the interviewee
Yeah.
instead of the interviewer. Anyway, tell us about the podcast life on your end. Maybe we can take some notes. What motivates you to do this, man?
Yeah, I was bored. I'm not bored, as well. I'm sure get into more conversation later. Idle time is not my friend. Pandemic, we're stuck home. Sorry guys, I don't listen to podcasts. I don't even know what they are. I know there's a lot of them. And so I just was bored. And I'm like, all right, what do I do now? My daughter had actually started one, my middle daughter, and she was kind of playing around with it. So I was like, how do you even do it? And so at the time that I actually launched my very first episode, it wasn't even supposed to be an episode. It was a Zoom meeting. And I was working at a facility, and the Columbus Destroyers, the arena football team, used our facility. So I got to know the players really well, the coach and a lot of the players. The world was kind of on fire at the time with racial tension, and it was just, you guys remember all that. I mean, the world was just, so tense. And so I reached out to the guys, and I just had this idea. I was like, guys, let's just get on and talk about how we can be better as human beings. Not, let's not argue about race and all this stuff, but let me learn from you, and maybe you learn from us. And so the four of us hopped on a Zoom call, put it out into the world, and right away it just got all this feedback, and people were like, man, that was awesome, you should do another one. And so then I was like, all right, so then I just started interviewing good friends of mine that are just good people. I mean, they're amazing people who I wanted them to tell their story. Right. And at some point during that first interview, I said, guys, we're unscripted, like let's just talk. And so that's where the unscripted came from. And so that I did, and the circle just kept getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and then I started inviting, taking these long shots and seeing who may say yes. And so Carrie Job was one of the biggest ones right out of the gate. But it was an incredible opportunity for me to just sit down with just one of the people that has just been very influential in my life. And there's a special story with my family and my mom and her music and things like that.
I've got a story about her that impacts me to this day. Mm-hmm. You've got a story about her as well. Mm-hmm. Let's go for it, because let's exchange, because
Sure. When my mom passed, my sister played Carrie Job's music in her ears in the final days. She would play her music to her, and so it was very personal for me to be able to look her in the eye and say thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, because what I told her is she walked my mom home. Her music literally ushered my mom into heaven, and so to know that she left this place and stepped into the place she wanted to be the most to the words and music of Carrie Job and some of her songs is very special. And then I had come home, and my mom was still she had not passed yet. My sister, or my wife, and I were out for a walk, and I was just listening to music, and Carrie Job's music was on, and I knew at that moment, and I looked at my wife, I said, I think my mom just passed. And we got home, and she had. So, not to be real sad, but it was really amazing for me to be able to tell Carrie Job that story and say thank you. I mean, I'm just some guy, but, I think for artists, it's important to hear things like that too, not just all the cheers at the concert, but on a personal level to know that like one guy in Columbus, Ohio, and his family are forever grateful for her.
If I'm that artist, that's the thing that gets me out of bed the next morning to write the new song. Those just the little single things are what's so important.
Yeah,
I got it was years ago, but some folks invited me for my birthday, and to go see her at House of Blues in Disney.
Oh wow!
Right, so. Great venue, but you don't think about a Christian artist coming in and singing at House of Blues. And it walked in, it was packed, right? And there were a couple of people I saw that were drinking a beer or whatever, but you looked at the bartenders, man, and they're all just like...
Not making any money.
Right?
Yeah.
And, she came out, and she just kicked it, man. She did a great job. And then at the end, right before... she came out for her encore, and then she says, all right, last song, but before we leave, you might have noticed your bartenders haven't been real busy tonight. And she said, and so my prayer right now is that everyone in this room will walk out And those fish bowls for tips will be flowing beyond any secular artist that's ever come in here.
That's cool.
And I thought, oh man, that's awesome, you know. So let's bless these people, because tonight wasn't a great night for their pay for them. Yeah. And sure enough, I walked out, money was overflowing.
Wow.
All of those. The House of Blues has that long bar at the back, the back of it. Money's just overflowing. I thought that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So
cool.
She was awesome. But,
Classy lady.
so idle time's not good for you. How deep you want to go there, bro?
I'll jump right in if you guys want. 64 days sober today.
Get it.
All right.
Get it.
Good.
So my daughter at Liberty just told me something recently, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts as well, but somebody at Liberty spoke, and they said the devil's in the hallway. And I can't get that out of my head because I think in our life we have open doors, we have closed doors. I've been in a season of the hallway for a while. And the hallway is not my friend. Idle time is not my friend, and so just became a alcoholic. Essentially, that I use that word very loosely because I think people think of that and they think he's out of bars, he's out on his family, he's in a back alley somewhere with a brown bag. I mean, you hear alcoholic and you think a lot of different contexts. And I think for me, I'm not your average alcoholic. I was just drinking a ton of beer. And I was doing it by myself at home, just spiraling. And it just got to a place where it got really, really bad. And 64 days ago, I had a conversation with my wife, and I said, I need to go to a meeting tonight. I'd never been to a meeting, didn't know what a meeting was, don't know what they do, seen what I've seen on TV with cookies and coffee and people saying, Aaron, I'm an alcoholic. And so I went, and I think, again, I maybe answer questions might be the better way to go for this part. But, man, I feel great.
Was this problem in conjunction with you starting a podcast, or was it because you were idle during 2020? How did this pop up in your life?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that. I think
just woke up one day after a while and went, "Holy cow, I got a problem."
Yeah, I have an addictive behavior.
Yeah,
just a strain through my life, my entire life, and so that's why I don't gamble. There's a lot of things I don't do because I know it's just going to end bad, and so I try to avoid a lot of those things. I think for this one, there was some burnout for a job that I had, and I won't go into a lot of details who that was with and those kind of things, but there was a lot of traumatic events that happened. And I actually recently had somebody on my podcast, and he mentioned something, and it really struck with me where, especially as men, we tend to just take things in stride and not deal with them a lot of times, and they complicate, and they go. I'll give you an example about, it was actually it's the day of the Ohio State-Michigan game, the day after Thanksgiving, that Saturday. I was up in Cleveland as a pallbearer, burying a very, very good friend of mine from high school, and came home that night, and our dog of 13 years died. Not to be sad, but it was just like, those are two events, and both of those by themselves, they take some time to deal with. Right. And it was just like, all right, okay, all right. But when you're, I think when you're in those seasons, they also knock you back off course again. And just every time it felt like I was trying to get things back together again, these things would just pop up, and instead of dealing with them, I would just drink them. And, being the great philosopher Kid Rock has a line that says,
I love that you started this with that.
He has a line that says, a drunk man's thoughts are a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts. And, for a long time I was like, because I actually like who I am a little buzzed. I can be free. I don't have to deal with my friend that passed away and my dog that died and the job I don't have right now. And, this didn't do and that didn't do. I'm not dealing with that right now. I'm comfortably numb. And I love Kid Rock, but, I would, 64 days here would say, man, a sober man's thoughts are way better because there's a filter for a reason. Right. And that filter, not just your words, but your actions, your thoughts, your emotions. It's important. I'm not saying he's wrong, because I think a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts. That's why people get a little loose and have a good time, but that's not necessarily a good thing, at least in my case.
I do things to excess as well at times, and so do you think men tend to do that as a coping mechanism as far as what's going on in their life, trying to shut things out, and being loose makes you fun or people laugh. Mm-hmm. You're able to get that recognition. You're able to get that confirmation that, yeah, Aaron, you're a good dude, man. Mm-hmm. Like you. Love you, man.
Sounds like a book we've read.
Yes, right.
From John.
Yeah.
You know, why do we do that?
I think for me, I don't know that people made me feel better. I think it made me feel better about myself in some terrible way. But here's the other thing I would say is that it makes me feel way better right now to make people proud, including my family. You know, to know that my kids look at me and say, "Dad, you look great, man. You're looking good, Dad." You know, to hear my wife say, "I'm really proud of you," man, that feels way better than knowing I just existed that day. I was there, but I wasn't present mentally, emotionally. You know what I'm saying? I think that is the lie of the enemy, is that, you know, oh man, you know, hey, just, you know, you have a couple of beers before you get to whatever event it might be. Dude, you'll be in a good place. It'll be easier to, you know, mingle. You'll be yourself.
Prep drinking.
Yeah,
I'm preparing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll be yourself, you know. Just make sure you get some gum and some lozenges, whatever it might be. It'll cover it. Doesn't. Nobody will know. They will. But, you know, and that's just what you tell yourself. And then, you know, at the end of the night or the next day, you're like, yeah, that didn't work, you know. And I think one of the other things that I say is that let your 2 a.m. Action or thought be your 8 a.m. action. Because I'm telling you, a lot of guys, I think that whatever your addiction might be, because let's just say it's any addiction. A lot of times in the middle of the night we wake up. You know, the older we get, some of us have to use the restroom, right? But I think, you know, those 2 a.m. thoughts are, oh, man, I'm not doing this tomorrow. I'm gonna get it right tomorrow. I'm gonna be better tomorrow. I'm gonna, you know, we make those 2 a.m. thoughts, but at 8 a.m. that action does not match, because at 8 a.m. what we start doing is going, you know, it's Thursday.
It's Friday Eve.
I'm going to go Monday. Yeah. I'll start Monday. Or you know what? It's middle of the month. Let me do dry January. That's what I'll do, dry January. And now you're through December and January's here, and then you're like, well, maybe is there anything in February that's cool? Maybe I'll do that, you know? Yeah. And before you know it, you're really deep into this thing.
Because how long have you been a believer?
Pretty much as long as I've been alive.
As long as you can remember.
As long as I can remember, yeah. Grew up in a church.
And I was the same way, but it took some pretty dramatic things in my life later that I look back and go, well, there's 30 years. I didn't get it. I wish I did get it. So when did that start happening, and what effect did, you know, your faith walk and God's grace work in your life to just turn on a light switch inside of you somehow?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that's come the most with sobriety is clarity of heart and mind, and you hear that all the time. Like you're not in this fog, and you know, I feel like there's been a lot of clarity. I can hear God better. Just being down here in Florida, you know, Friday, standing there at Cocoa Beach, feet in the cold water, just watching the waves. I stood there for an hour, and I just stared into that white box that we as men love to look into and not have any real thought, but it was just a reminder of His holiness and how big He really is, to look at the ocean and think He's really, really big, you know. And that's not a thought I would have had before, because there was so much noise. In Genesis, I was just reading this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. How many times have we read Genesis? How many times have we read about Adam and Eve? And how many times have you heard Him say, "Where are you?" And then also heard Him say, "Who told you that?" And those words, "Who told you that?" have just stuck with me. Yeah. And man, how many times have we heard it? How many times have we read it? But over the last, few weeks, when I think about these things, when I reflect on it, I keep coming back to that, where God said, "Man, who told you that?" Because I didn't tell you that. And so I think the lies, the 2 a.m.s, the 8 a.m.s, a lot of the stuff I've talked about, I was believing someone else in that hallway. The devil is in the hallway. And so I think there's clarity. And for me, the faith has just been worship music's sweeter. It's louder. It feels good. It just feels different. It hits my heart different. Sunday morning services, time with my family, prayer, journaling, things I've not done before, I'm doing because I feel like I'm just in a very sweet spot, and I'm not going to listen to that hallway. Whenever that other door is going to open up, that's going to be fine. But I don't know if that answered the question, but I just feel like there's just a clarity.
Gotcha. You went a while with people not really understanding, too. So kind of combine that in, because it was a couple of years ago that you did a podcast where you kind of announced to the world.
And then came to a men's conference in Florida.
And then all of a sudden you got family members going, what?
Yeah. I was miserable, and it was literally right before the men's conference. It was that week. And have a good friend in Tennessee that runs in a recovery center called S2L. So shout out Adam Comer and S2L in Tennessee. And he was a guest, and he actually came on to talk about a documentary that they had done called The Forgotten Pandemic. And it was about a lot of people and things that happened during the pandemic were addictions and things like that. So anyway, he came on as a guest for that. I talked to him earlier in the week, and I was really ready to get this. But I needed help. I at the end of the day, I needed help, and that's one of the things I will say is I am the last guy to ask for help. I don't do it. I don't know why. It's just part of my nature.
I think that's men in general, bro.
Yeah, I really do. Yeah. I mean, I just didn't want to ask for help. But in my mind, I'm like, I just need help. I don't know where to start this thing. And so anyway, I thought I was doing the right thing. Went on. We talked about the documentary. I did a good interview with him. I wanted to make sure I took care of him. That's why he was on. But at the end, I did, put out this confession, and I just told him. I said, because I typically, walk around about 180, 200. On a heavy day, I'm 200. I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5'11". So, I'm pushing 250, 275. And so to answer your question, my family saw a physical transformation and didn't understand. My friends who I haven't seen, you run into somebody at a restaurant, and, you just know, nobody knows what's going on with me because, because again, it's like closet drinking. I'm not out at bars. I'm not out on my wife. I'm not out on my kids. I'm just gaining weight like crazy. And they don't understand. Well, a lot of people during the pandemic started put on a little weight, right? Because we were all home, and it's a little different in Florida. You guys stayed open, but everybody in Ohio was just drinking, eating, and sitting around doing nothing. And
lots of babies were born 9 months later.
That's right. Yeah, so I think people were bored. So I think initially there was this, wow, you gained a little pandemic weight. Well, the pandemic weight kept going on, and people. So I went out, made that confession, hopped on a plane, came here to Florida. My heart was in the right place. My head was not in the right place, right. And it probably explains a lot about why or where I was at the time. My heart was, let me help somebody else and do it with Adam's help over here on this podcast, and people listen to it. It'll be great. Well, by the time I got feet on the floor in Florida, things were breaking at home because it was breaking news, and I had not prepared. My wife knew because I had told her, we had talked about it. But even then, I didn't allow her to listen to the episode, take time to feel okay with the episode, be prepared for family members that were going to say, how come we didn't know?
What the heck? Yeah.
Right, and so it was a bad move on my part. Hopped on the plane, got here, and man, the whole time I was here at this amazing conference about grace with John Lynch, and I'm feeling amazing. I'm free. I'm hearing that God loves me no matter what, even on my worst days. God loves me, and I'm just pumped up, excited. And meanwhile, it was just, breaking loose at home. And so literally sitting on a tarmac, getting ready to come back to Ohio, I got just lit up with texts from some of those family members who were really hurt, really frustrated. And
so what? I'm missing something.
Okay,
I
sure.
don't know your story.
Sure.
So I'm hearing it for the first time. It sounds to me like you made a confession about addiction.
I did. I said I'm an alcoholic.
So
I had self-proclaimed that I was.
So
an
why
alcoholic.
are they upset with you
Well, because I didn't give them a heads up. There was no, hey
You
guys,
just
I'm going to
broke
put
it
this
on the
podcast.
Okay.
They did not know. They just knew I was getting very heavy.
That's it.
Did
That's
they
it.
even know that you
Okay.
had been drinking? Like,
No.
Nobody knew. Wow.
No.
That is a out of nowhere slap in the face.
So that you don't even drink
It's a
beer in
bad
front of
move.
them, like
No.
at this point. Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, and like, a family event or things like that, everybody knew that, I could have a beer. And that's the thing is the worst part about this whole thing, this is going to sound really terrible, but like, I've never had a problem with it. I genuinely mean this. My wife and I used to go to dinner, especially on a nice night out. I would have a beer with dinner. It was no big deal until it was a big deal. And it's like, well, why did it take this long for this to become a big deal? There's been a lot of unpacking of that. But, so they knew that I would drink a beer.
Okay.
But they didn't know the extent to which this thing had gotten
Were
really
you
out of
doing
control.
things that like not paying bills, doing like hurting the family in other
Functional
ways?
alcoholic.
But you were just functioning through your life. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the announcement is what hurt them. They
absolutely.
They didn't want it on a public
They
forum.
were blindsided.
Did that steal your joy while you're on the plane? You just came to a wonderful
You're
conference.
like riding this high.
Did you have a drink on the plane?
I did not.
I'm
did
just
in the
curious because I
airport.
could see where you. Okay.
I did in the airport because honestly, guys, so I think, and I'm not here to make excuses, I got to own it. But that series of events knocked me back into another long, when I think and it's not their fault, it's mine, and I had to own it, and I should have manned up, and I should have done it the right way and taken care of it the right way. Instead, I used it as an excuse and a crutch to just go right back down the path, which took me to a long path again. I have to become very selfish right now and say, Aaron, the one thing you need to take care of is yourself, because then you can put on the oxygen mask for everybody else. But right now, you've been putting everybody else's on, and you're dying, literally.
You mentioned the devil in the hallway. Our friend Nate Larkin, who was
That sounds like a country music song, bro.
Yeah, I know. But our friend
hallway.
Nate Larkin, who did our first men's conference with us, he created the Samson Society, and it's just an amazing organization with over 10,000 men now across the country, probably even more than that. But he finished up his keynote speech that night with no matter how far down the road of recovery you go, the ditch is always in the exact same place, and it's just to your right or to your left.
Right. Yep.
And you saying that in the hallway, and I'm saying he's in that ditch just waiting on you, just to take one step off, outside that line, and boom, it's there. And especially like you say, you have an addictive personality, and whatever that addiction is that you fill it with, whether it's gambling, money, porn, women, booze, drugs, whatever that is. It's a constant battle. You recognize you have some triggers, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Any revelation from your piece that might help a brother out there that's kind of dealt with the same things you are?
Yeah, I'll give you a link to a series. It's actually an interview with a guy named Pete Wilson, mega church pastor out of Nashville, at a church. He's had some issues as well, and that were well documented. But Pete's a very good friend of mine, and he's been on twice, just interviewing with him. And one of the times he came on, we just covered 5 things about grace. And I'm not going to remember all of them right now, but it was like grace for others, grace for ourselves, grace for our leaders, grace for those that we've hurt, and grace for those that have hurt us. And we took them in bite size, and just to hear Pete talk about grace. So I'd recommend that one to everybody, because I won't do the job that he did talking about grace. But you got to give yourself some grace to say, I'm going to mess up. My wife says that now. She's like, I know you're going to mess up. But, being honest about it. Because I think for me, it was mess up, hide, mess up, hide, mess up, hide. Not tell somebody, whether it's a good friend, certainly your spouse, tell somebody, hey, I'm having a bad day. God knows, and that's where His grace comes in. But the grace of others too, to say, I'm having a bad day. I didn't hit the mark today.
But you know who you are in Christ. That's one of the things I keep telling guys, like Cito or anybody I come in contact with lately, is that's what I did. That's not who I am.
Right.
And for them to understand that is important, because grace covers a multitude of things that you did. But when you know who you are in Christ, you can walk in that freedom. You have this confidence in that freedom, and you exude that confidence, and people wonder, what is it about you? Well, it's grace, because Jesus isn't standing on the other side of the pile of shit. He's standing right next to me going, how are we going to handle this, man?
Yeah, we're going to get through it.
We're going to get through it. And as men, that's why we're doing this. We want men to know is that's not who you are.
Right.
That's what you did.
Well, and the courage and humility it takes to feel that is it's tough, right? I mean, first of all, you have to have the courage to look yourself in the mirror and know you're going to deal with some shit on the other side.
Right.
Because you told your wife, you told your kids, and now you're going to have to deal with that, right? They're not going to be happy, right, of whatever that is. So there's a fear that's driving you not to do it.
Right.
But then also the humility to say to myself, hey, I'm messing up. Like, I'm falling short of what I know I should be doing. And now I have to deal with that too.
Yeah.
So am I ready and prepared to deal with this?
Right.
And without knowing the Holy Spirit's backing you and that he's going to get you through it.
Right.
You know, you're not going to like it. It's going to hurt. It's going to be a painful journey, but like not having that comfort inside of you.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol, drugs.
Anything.
It could be, I watched porn last night. It could be, I had an immoral thought. I flirted with somebody. It could be, I mean, all these things are things that you have to deal with.
Yep.
And as men, I think a lot of times our courage we put out, but we don't actually have inside, if that makes sense. So we hide it. It's like it's easier just not to deal with it, and I just won't do it again. I mean, at least for me, that's where I go a lot of times. You know, I'm a guy. I struggle with everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, I know I do that.
Yeah.
You know, and the harder life gets, a lot of times, the less I want to tell people it's hard.
It is.
Because it's like now I'm failing. I should be strong. I should be this protector. I should be comfortable in my own skin. I know that I know what I'm doing, but it's not working, so I'm going to keep doing it. You know, there's just all this. I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know?
It's one of the most honorable things you can do. So I said it was selfish, but it's also honorable to get your stuff together. Whatever your stuff is, whoever's listening, whether it's alcohol or gambling or, you know, like we've mentioned, porn, whatever, get it together, because it's one of the most honorable things you can do. And again, you'll go back to making people proud and stop feeling bad about yourself. You have an opportunity. And as men, so that's what I would call you out a little bit. Hey, I'm calling myself out. I'm dealing with it every day. And man up. Do it. Like, you can do this, and it'll be honorable, and you'll stop feeling the way that you feel every day. And guess what? If you think you got away with it, you didn't. And if it's even if it's just today, you might have got away with it today, but it's going to come back. It's in the hallway.
You made a comment early on that, and this is one of the things that brought me back, and that's the outside noise. You can't hear God with all the outside noise. It's too loud.
Too loud.
The alcohol, the porn, the drug, whatever it is. And I love the fact that you just said it's honorable. Just do it. It's honorable.
Yeah.
And then you'll start hearing from the Lord again, because you won't have that outside noise.
Right. The last thing I was going to say about that is, to your point, there's going to be a first conversation at some point with your family, with your bride, with your friends, with your whatever it may be. There's going to be a tough conversation, and that's the one that I think we run from. But again, man up. But here's my guidance to anybody. That first conversation, it's not about you. It's about you, because you're having a conversation about what you've done. But it's not about you. So when you sit across the table from whomever that may be, and they want to air all that they've been carrying on your behalf, it's not about you. You let them air that. Let them say what they have to say, that they've been carrying and need to say. And you don't, in that moment, you don't have to define it. Take it. Because it's the least you can do with what you've probably put them through for however long it's been. There'll be a day, and there will be days in the future where you can unpack all that. I like to look at it or think of it like a backpack, and they put that on when you put yours on, but they've been carrying the weight of seeing you gain weight, seeing you not be yourself, missing events, money, all the things that all these things do to us. They've been putting rocks in their backpack, and this is their chance to finally put their backpack down and put all the rocks on the table. And honestly, it's your opportunity to see the damage you've done, and it's tough, man. We just talked about honorable. It's tough, but Trust me, it's worth it. And then there'll be a day when we can define each rock and how it got there and how we're going to bust it up, and we're not carrying it anymore.
We don't have to fix it right now.
Doesn't have to be that day.
No.
Doesn't have to be that day.
Well, it sounds like your family extended a lot of grace to you. I mean, was there anybody that was trying to hold you accountable, or was it such a secret thing that nobody even knew?
Nobody even knew.
Yeah, because I think a lot of Christians, they want to extend grace, but they don't want to enable.
Right.
And so they don't know where the line is.
Right.
So they kind of err on the other side of that, like, well, he can't come around us anymore. He can't come to church. Like they cross over into this judgmental thing.
Right. Right.
But back to what Trey was saying earlier, we're all a foot away from the ditch, whatever it is.
Right.
So when one of us falls, man, it's like we need to help each other up. We need to extend that grace.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's cool that you still came down to the men's conference. We're encouraged, even though you're still struggling in that. And so, we all have people in our lives where we have to extend that grace, because it's going to, his loving kindness brings us to repentance.
Right.
It's not always the hammering.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that we can extend grace and encourage each other and say, keep going, man, you're going to make it.
Right.
We're all in this together.
Right. I have a very small, so my circle, when I told everybody that night I went to that meeting, was I reached out to maybe 5 people. I didn't broadcast it on a podcast. Yeah. I reached out to like 5 people, and every one of them was like, dude, I had no idea you were struggling.
Yeah.
Literally every one of them was like, are you serious, man? And some of them were mad. Some of them were really mad at me for not letting them know. But those same people text me, for the most part, one of them texts me every day, what number are we at today? What number are we at today?
Yeah, there you go.
How are you doing today?
There you go.
And that's, keep that circle tight, when you do that, because it's important. And they want, again, it makes me so proud to text back 64.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think Impact does really well. And I know I'm going to say it because I'm part of it, and I don't mean it to be like that. That's what drew me in, was the fact that I can walk in the room and be like, Trey,
it sucks today.
I suck.
Yeah.
There's never a time I've ever been a part of an Impact event, been around somebody that really understands Impact, that will look at you and be like, you're right, you do suck.
Yeah.
That's not what they say.
No.
They're like, no, the world sucks, you're just in it. And let me tell you, let's remind you of why you don't suck, and what's inside of you that you don't remember that's making you feel that way.
Right.
That's what it's all about, is, we're going to mess up. We're going to do bad things. I mean, I've called you, you've called me, and it's like, and nobody needs to know what we called each other about, and it stays right on that phone. Right. And it's never talked about. I've probably not even told you some of the stuff I've told him, because I don't want Michael to know.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want you to know anything, but you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
But the point is that you have a place to go, and to your point with the backpack full of rocks, you didn't fill the backpack up in a day.
No.
You filled it up over years.
It was probably pebbles at the
pebbles to
beginning.
start.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
And then they turned into big old boulders later.
Right.
And so, you got to unpack them one at a time. Sometimes you can take a handful out because they're all kind of fall in the same category, sure. But, I think sometimes we want to make our confession of whatever that is, then we're like, all right, now we all should just be good. But you can't. You don't heal in hours or minutes. You heal over years. And sometimes you never get to heal all the way. It's just a part of it,
And I think the enemy's greatest tactic is isolating ourselves.
Absolutely.
He doesn't want you to go to a men's group. He doesn't want you to have other brothers that are going, hey, man, how are you doing? Let me pray with you. He wants us to stay home and drink quietly while nobody sees or knows.
Right.
I can tell you, when I'm having my worst times, this is when I least want to be around people.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a guy that I work with, or minister to, or be a brother with, right? And the guys, anytime I'm talking with the guys and we're doing this, they always hate at the very end. I said, so what haven't you told me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he started a little squirm in the seat.
Yeah, but all's good. And then 4 months later, we're talking, and he goes, you asked me about 4 months ago about this, and there was something I didn't say. And I said, so how have you felt the past 4 months not telling me that? He goes, God, it's just ripping me up inside. You would have felt so much better 4 months ago, dude, if you just would have, you just wasted joy that you could have had for 4 months because you're so consumed with it. And we talked about John Lynch a couple of times. That hit one of my favorite quotes in his book is it so important that we fix each other, or is it more important that there are no secrets? Right?
Adam, my friend Adam, says one thing, and he says, a man who hides nothing has nothing to hide. And that's real simple, but man, that's really tough. I mean, we're men, right?
We're men.
A man who hides nothing has nothing to hide. And so I was asking him because here's the thing that was the biggest. We've talked about grace. We've talked about my family extending grace. But at the end of the day, trust was broken. And trust can be broken in a second. And it takes years to rebuild. It takes years to build, and it can be broken in a second. So how do we build back that trust? One of the very first things I did, I don't know if you guys are country music fans, but listen to used to be formerly Lady Antebellum, now Lady A, but Charles Kelly's Journey, one of their singers, is a guy that if you get a chance, go watch the videos of him confessing. There's a song he wrote called As Far As You Could, to alcohol while he was in rehab, and I used to listen to it and I couldn't get through it. It's a powerful song, but there's a line in there that says, "Look who's standing now," and it's amazing. So Charles Kelly's incredible, but one of the things I saw in the interview is a little $50 Amazon breathalyzer. And so people say, have you been back to a meeting? I have not. And I'm not knocking AA. It was incredible. It was unbelievable to sit next to a guy that had been 45 years sober. 45 years sober on a Friday night, he's sitting in a meeting. And he's like, my name's so-and-so. I've been sober for 45 years. Incredible. For me, what I needed was accountability. And so this little $50 product on Amazon is I hate that guy because makes me as accountable as possible. At any moment, my wife can walk in and go, test. And I have to blow in this little breathalyzer, and it's going to come up zeros, or it's going to come up a number. And if it's a number, we got to have a talk. And if it's zeros, then she's got one more, coin in the trust bank. So those are, he talked about receipts. Give him receipts. If that's what it takes, if you're serious, and that goes back to what you said about accountability. If you're serious about it, then you got to get to a place where a man a man who hides nothing has nothing to hide. And if you got to give him receipts, give her receipts. Blow in a breathalyzer.
Man, it's awesome to have you down. You took a little vacay. I'm sorry I wasn't in town all weekend. I was on the other coast in San Diego.
Yeah.
But it's great to circle up with you here. You came down for our first Grace event, the Impact Ministries Walking Free in Grace of Micah Tyler. That is now metamorphosized.
Yes.
Over 3 years. We got our next annual event coming up about 4 months from now. And it's at the King Center, Melbourne, Florida. If you're looking at the amazing graphics, we're going to have a night of grace for the family. It's a celebration of fathers and families in conjunction with Father's Day weekend. And we're going to be sharing the stage with this guy. Y'all know this guy? I don't.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
So Tim Tebow's going to join us. It's going to be a powerful night, and get your tickets. They're selling pretty briskly. I'm not saying it's hotcakes yet, but hotcakes are coming.
Yep.
So check that out. If you can relate to what our brother talked about today, and maybe you have something like that going on in your life, go to our website and click on the Brotherhood Network. When you hover at the top, you'll see it pop up, and I'll get an email. We want to hear your story. And you can email us directly at impactmen, that's M-P-A-C-T, men at impactministries.org. And once again, M-P-A-C-T. We'd love to hear your story. Maybe you have an opportunity to get you on and talk about it, or at least create a dialogue. If you're calling from another state, guess what? We got a guy in another state. Pretty much, our network grows, and we can put you in touch with someone there that can walk arm in arm with you through whatever that struggle of life might be, or to celebrate with you as well. I do more celebrating with you guys than I do struggles, but when they come up, we're there for each other. To get to the Unscripted Podcast, where do we go?
Just go to aaronconrad.com. AARONCONRAD.com.
Aaron.
That's right.
Well,
Thank you for being so open, man.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
That's what we're all about, and that's why we decided to start bringing guests on board. We've had a couple of incredible chats about these issues of life that we try to deal with on our own, and how much easier it is to deal with it through the Holy Spirit and a genuine Christian brother to put his arm around you along the way. So we appreciate you being here, bro.
Yeah, man.
With that said, we will catch you on the flip side. I'm Trey.
I'm Michael.
I'm Brad.
I'm Jeremy.
We are with Aaron Conrad.
Cussin Christians.
Yeah, they used to say the green nose. My wife used to work there, and she'd say you don't ever want to put one of those on it without washing it first.
Where's it been?
Yeah, exactly. So
I don't know.
I don't.
Logan knows.
I'm so naive. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Okay.
I don't know, dude.
Think about all the little kids with boogers that
Exactly.
put on that thing before you put it on your face.
That's what I'm saying. You got
I mean,
Don't worry, you already had it on.
new. I don't